steering wheel. Lapse the steering wheel, yeah. Give him steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on! Whoa!
Do that, can I please? Do that hip.
How the f*** that's possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? Proper radio. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track. Down that interstate.
I am so annoyed.
Boys and girls, your attention, please.
Hello and welcome back inside the Park for May for podcast number 979. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
A.K.A. Negative Camera. You know what we do when there's a race or testing? Well, you know what we do.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
I mean, why wouldn't we do that? Of course we do that. But before getting into this, I do have to introduce my co-host, and you know what that means. Yep. I happen to know that our very own Paul Charsley was hustling a Mazda around a racetrack this weekend. We'll have to get the lowdown.
Rex from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charsley, the International.
It's Paul. Paul, you were hustling a Mazda around a racetrack somewhere in Tejas, weren't you?
Yeah. Broke out of retirement. You know, you got to keep your license up. So every now and again, you have to throw yourself out there amongst the young guns. But it was a little bit of fun for sure. It was. It's difficult. In my head, I know everything I need to do. Getting my mind and body to do it again when you're out for a while is a little harder than I anticipated, I suppose. But
it's a little bit of rust.
Good. A lot of rust. Yeah, it's the finesse, the techniques.
Yeah.
It's just It starts coming back. We call them light switches. When we talk to it, it's like one goes on and the other one goes on until all the lights are on in the house. You're not 100%, but no, it was maybe 80%. 80% of the house was lit, but it was good. It was good anyway. It was great to be out there, fighting for position, not just driving around a track just for nothing. We were actually fighting for position. So, it was good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Well, that's good. That's exciting. You had to keep. Well, it's an SCCA event. You had to keep your FIA super license just in case Audi calls. You got to keep
in case.
Just in case.
Yeah,
that's right.
But so it was an SCCA major, which I guess qualifies you for the runoffs or something. But not really what I'm gunning for. But it was close by. So it also always helps me, even when I do the karting. It helps me be able to then rethink of how I talk to our drivers. Yeah. Right? If they're struggling with something or there's something I'm looking at and I'm like, why aren't you doing this? Obviously I was talking to myself saying, why the hell aren't you doing this, Paul? it gives you a bit more empathy, but also a bit more, it just helps, I think, in general. Just the ideology and how to turn, maybe a dip in performance around a little bit. And where that deficit may be coming from.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Hey, I saw a presser. Was it yesterday? A little news out of Heart of Racing on your new driver lineup for the number 23 Vantage?
Well, the second WEC car. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's the second WEC car. Okay, yeah. Tell us who's going to be in that.
So that's Johnny Adam and Dudu. Barrichello is going to be doing dual duty between the US and the WEC Championship.
Oh, okay.
And then Gray Newell obviously is the bronze because you need a bronze, silver, and a gold in each. So Johnny's been a Aston factory driver for a long time. He knows him super well. And so, he was a good choice to kind of lead as a gold in that car. Yeah. Got so much experience, and he's really going to help Gray come along, which in WEC is super important to have the bronzes perform. It's a little different than IMSA, where there's a lot of yellows, a lot of catch-up, a lot of pass-arounds. In WEC, what you do on the track counts every second. So if you can bring your bronze driver up to a level, that helps the whole program. It's not just get the bronze driver out of the way, then we go racing. The bronze driver literally has a big part to play in the whole race.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And for F1 fans, so Dudu Barrichello, that's Ruben's.
That's Ruben's son, yes.
It's his son, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and Rubens is all over the place. He's very dedicated to his son, so he's basically been everywhere. He was down in Australia when we were racing down there, and he's been everywhere that we've been so far. But he's a proud dad, and he doesn't get involved in stuff. It's not like, well, why aren't you doing this or this or that? He kind of sits back and he's just kind of there as a dad, which is very cool to see.
Oh, that's cool. He's not quite the Jos Verstappen in the paddock, I guess.
No, he doesn't have me up against the wall by the neck saying, "Get my son the new tires, damn you!"
Right, right. Why isn't Duda getting more seat time? Right. Now, Rubens is a good guy. I've talked to him at races and events, and he's a super nice guy. Really like Rubens, and I'm sure his son is no different. I haven't met him yet, but that's kind of exciting. That's exciting news for Thor, the heart of racing. That's good.
Yeah, the ever-expanding Thor.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. It's like, what the heck is Ian doing over there?
I know. It seemed like I just blinked, and we had one car in an IMSA race, and all of a sudden we got cars all over the world racing.
It's right.
Crazy.
Right. Yeah. How did Bathurst go?
Not so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, got hit on the back at the start, and that broke a rear suspension piece, so the car ended up going like 9 laps down and ended up finishing 7 laps down in the end. 7th place, I think.
Yeah.
But ultimately not the race they wanted to run. Car had potential to win, which is always a bummer when something happens super early and then you have to literally drive for 12 hours hoping to try and catch up that somehow.
Yeah, right. That's got to be demoralizing.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, we got a little action on a Formula One to talk about this. This week. I thought what we would do this evening for this podcast is we would go. So we all know that there's been, the 2026 season has began, had the extended preseason, had testing, right? We had the private shakedown at Barcelona, and then 2 official 3-day tests in Bahrain. We've got the 2026 rule set, which is the radical change of the car, smaller cars, active aero, 50-50 split between electric and combustion. And, really, as we always say every year going into testing, real mileage or kilometers matter here, as well as speed and other things as you go through testing. But I thought it might be good just to do a recap, and then hopefully next weekend we'll do a bit of a season preview podcast with the three of us. And so I thought it would be good just to go through and sort of do a testing recap. Now, I wasn't at the test with a lap counter and a stopwatch and taking score, but so reading different news outlets, if I'm off a lap or two here, a tenth or two here, don't kill me, because I've seen varying different reports on very different, actually reputable Formula One sites. So, different counts, but I think we're going to be in the ballpark with the numbers I'm going to toss out. So we'll talk about the first one in general. I'm not going to pick the fly poop out of the pepper here on the details and the numbers, but let's jump in and talk about the overarching themes in those test sessions. So the Barcelona shakedown, non-televised, private test held over 5 days. Teams could participate on 3 of the 5 days, and so most of them split their mileage across multiple days. Only 10 of the 11 teams, Williams did not show up. We talked about that a few weeks ago on the podcast due to production delays, etc., with James Vowell saying he hoped that didn't put him on the back foot. I would say it probably didn't in aggregate, although there's some other things that came out of the observing Williams in the Bahrain test, but we'll get into that later. Reliability. Really surprised here, Paul. In 2014's turbo hybrid era, a total of 93 laps were completed on day one. And in 26, one team alone managed more than half of that. And the combined day one tally was about, 4 or 5 times bigger than back on the big significant hybrid era change. So I was a little surprised at that, Paul. I felt like we'd have something similar to when we released the MGUH, MGUK power unit hybrid back then. And I was kind of thinking lacking MGUH, turbo spool, different turbos, different engine. Little surprised they got the reliability they did in Barcelona.
Yeah, I was so impressed, honestly. I mean, I know they've been working on these things behind the scenes, with separate teams working on teams, and my experience trying to put the Valkyrie out into the world, when you only had like a year of testing, but we had a year to test. We had the car out at tracks, running around, finding things out, going back, having a little time, going back. These teams, everything's simulated, until we came to this first test. So I was very impressed with how all the teams, except for maybe a couple, obviously one didn't show up, were actually able to put the miles in without any just massive disasters. In my first mind when these rules came out and thinking about the first test, I was like, oh my God, these cars are going to be stopping on the grass every 5 minutes. It's just going to be a nightmare. But it just shows you the depth of these teams. Obviously, they've got hundreds and hundreds of people working on it. But in general, I think, hand clap to all the F1 teams for showing up with cars that can actually, the rules aside, actually get around laps and keep performing, getting all those laps in too. So very, very, very expressive and very important, obviously, because the season kicks off very quickly.
Yeah, no doubt. A couple notables, Mercedes putting in 500 laps in Barcelona. That's a great figure in total. Ferrari 442. Then you drop down to Haas, Alpine Racing Bulls. Recurring themes there, and we'll get into that a little later. Red Bull 303 laps, Audi 240 laps, 164 for Cadillac. And then unfortunately, Aston Martin showed up late, only got in 65 laps and some issues there, but we'll get into that. The main talking points coming out of Barcelona, and I thought this would be good. So I'm going to review, that's about as much as I'm not going to talk about lap times necessarily. I'm really going to talk about lap count because mileage and reliability is critical.
Yeah, and we talked about it for the podcast. You can look at the lap times all you want, but Barcelona is not the place to look at. I'd say you look at the last couple of days there in Bahrain, but there's so many systems on this car, and there's so many programs that all these cars have to go through. There's no way they're even focusing any of their brain cells to just trying to get the car to go fast. They're trying to literally learn the systems, then slowly, gradually start trying to maximize what these things are doing before you even think about sending the car out and say, hey, go do a hot lap, right? Yeah.
That is the difference when you look at like a place like Barcelona in that first test versus the final one in Bahrain. Paul in Bahrain probably working on energy mapping strategies, how much we use when and what, and trying out some passing and boost and those kind of things. They're well into that testing. Barcelona, you got to be thinking, they're thinking, is the battery deploying the right kilowattage? Is the system delivering? Is the software working? Right, this would be all bespoke software they're using in that ECU. You're really mapping out system interoperability. Is it working? Is it delivering the rates and levels that we expect? Those kind of things. So I agree.
I think one of the key things was, everyone talks about the output of the power. It's really this regenerative braking on the rear, and getting the brake balance right. The change that happens if it's harvesting and getting it right, so that when the driver hits the brake, he can be confident that it's going to do what he thinks it's going to do. I think that's been a very tough thing for any of the drivers to get used to, and something so very complicated, an infinite amount of changes you can make on the car to affect those things, and one thing affects the other. But as I said, real focus has been on this power, but my focus in my head is how to make sure that the brake balance is good going into the corner, and confidence buying for any of the drivers, else they're never going to be able to put a quick lap in or a good race distance in either.
Yeah, when I was watching the Bahrain tests, I didn't notice it so much at Barcelona. Certainly I was focused on, Mercedes. They looked dominant, lots of laps they put in. Power unit looked reliable. Ferrari, Lewis had a quick lap. Ferrari looked like they had a solid foundation there. Charles had a good lap. Potential look there for Ferrari, which, if you're Tifosi and you're a Ferrari fan like I am, all of a sudden you get all excited. Oh, we're going to win the championship, that sort of thing. But even the new team showing promise, Audi, Cadillac, pounding out some good laps. A lot of discussion about Mercedes, its new engine, Ferrari, how it's performing. And I kept going back to the fact that Red Bull has showed up with a brand new engine in leagues with Ford, and Audi, completely new engine, right?
Yeah.
And you got to hand it to them. That's a Herculean task. And I think through all three tests, they did well. But I texted you, I thought, when we got into the third test, I thought one of the real challenges, I would think, and I'm a layperson, I'm not a driver, but that regenerative harvesting in the super clipping moments. What I noticed in both Bahrain tests, a lot of lockups going into turn one and different after the straights. There was a lot of front left lockups, some front rights. And it started to appear to me, and I think Anthony Davison did a great job of unpacking it.
He did. He was amazing.
Awesome.
He was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. If I was ever around him, I would buy him a beer because I think Ant is fantastic.
Yeah.
But, he was explaining that in that super clipping moment that the regen is regenerating certain amounts of level, and that can vary. And I got to think, Paul, from a driver's perspective, just like this weekend, you're coming to the corner, your braking point every single corner. But when the regen kicks in, even if you remember KERS and what it felt like is regenerative under braking and how much it scrubbed off speed-wise, if this thing kicks in while you're full throttle and starts slowing down, it would seem to me that it would really mess with your head on where your actual braking point is if you don't know how stiff or how much retardation that regeneration system is going to put on the axle. How do I brake? How am I going to know how much retardation? I mean, that would be mind-blowing for me.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, you're approaching a corner at different speeds. Your brake point should be different, but then how is the regenerative braking going to kick in? That's what we saw. Those drivers aren't making stupid mistakes.
No.
It's literally getting the system to be consistent for when you hit the brake pedal, no matter what it's trying to do, whether it's regenning 100%, 50%, none, right?
Yeah.
That the feel is the same in the pedal, and the braking stopping distance is as similar as you can get it. And so, that's why I'm talking about consistency. It's like, drive into a corner. You may have brakes or you may not. What are you going to do? I know. Generally, is that going to help you make maximum performance on a lap time? Not so much.
Yeah.
It's very complex. I found Anthony Davison made it so interesting, and I loved watching the testing and the analysis. I thought, this is the most interesting testing I've seen in years.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of complaints about this or that. It's not as fun to drive, but the depth of the technical issues that all the teams are having to deal with is immense and just amazing to see. Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. It reminded me when I went to Ferrari and spent time there, and I did the Ferrari F1 simulator, and it was on the Fiorano track. I'm telling on myself here, Paul. It reminded me of that sort of retardation of the wheel and stopping. All of a sudden you hit the normal braking point, but it's harvesting more, so you actually slow down more than what you thought you were going to, that sort of thing. Yeah. And when I was in the simulator, I was in there, I felt like a sardine in that cockpit because I'm 6'3" and it's a pretty tight fit. And so I'm in there and I'm driving. The problem with me in the simulator is I couldn't get the sensation of scrubbing off speed.
Right.
In the body. You know what I mean? And the brake pedal was like pushing your foot on a wall.
Super hard, yeah.
Super hard, right?
Super hard,
And there's no give like your road car. It's just super hard. Yeah. And when I would go in, I kept either flying through the corner, or they'd say, no, you got to brake heavier, and blah, blah. So I'd brake and brake and brake, and all of a sudden I'd just kind of stop at the apex. Oh, crap. Not that much speed you're scrubbing off, Yeah, so it kind of reminded me of that. If you're braking where you normally, with the pressure and at the rate you're normal at the braking point, but it's harvesting more energy, all of a sudden you're slower than what you thought you'd be.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the brake by wire, it's not hydraulic, right? It's brake by wire. So you're literally programming the pedal to give the driver feedback not actually what the feedback will be.
Yeah, exactly.
So that they can drive the car to its nth pace.
Yeah.
So they're basically,
Yeah.
So you're simulating a brake pedal feel,
Yeah.
but it's an actual brake pedal feel, and it
Right.
changes depending on if it's harvesting, not harvesting, or what degree of harvesting it's doing.
Yeah. And so I would love to just know how much time went into the software development between managing varying levels of regenerative harvesting and the reduction or retardation and wheel lockup, and what software maybe, with the sensors, going back and forth between how much brake pressure, where you braked, is the wheel locking up. There's got to be something going on, anticipating to make the drivability more predictable for the driver, I would think.
Right, and it's ongoing. Believe you me.
Yeah,
They're still
it will be.
working on that.
I think they are. They're back.
They didn't
coding.
okay, we're done. Code that. Knock that one off. We've done that.
No.
That's going to go in all season long.
All season long. Because as Ant pointed out, it's going to change track to track.
Absolutely. And compound to compound.
Yep.
Changes in surface, changes in compound, changes in circuit design, what type of corner you're coming into. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. How much you're harvesting for the whole track, like Monaco versus Monza, that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't envy the brain trust at any of those teams. I really don't. And it is complicated. And the only thing I hope, fingers crossed, is that either Formula One or the broadcast team at Sky or whatever the hell they're going to do here in the States. I still don't know. I guess they're just going to show
it's the F1
TV.
TV people.
Yeah, that's just what I wanted. So no offense, but I hope they can somehow come up with graphics to relay or convey a lot of the complexity that's going on inside the car around energy and all that. Because if you can't, then I'm happy for the manufacturers who really wanted to be here to develop that technology, perhaps for road cars, but it doesn't do anything for the racing fan if we don't understand it. But that's kind of the challenge.
But do you? Because, I mean, just from my side being on the pit wall and seeing how much and many levels there are of these things, it would be overwhelming and you would miss the racing.
I agree with that.
The beauty of what should be is that could be going under the radar, and you can now focus back on the racing, because the racing is the racing. Hopefully the technology isn't interfering with the racing so much that all we're worried about is, he's not harvesting, he's harvesting, and that's what the focus of the race is, rather than wheel-to-wheel battles. Ultimately, the goal is that all this technology is going to be, kind of not hit. It's going to be, everyone's going to be aware of it, but it's not going to be noticeable between each car that the racing then comes to the fore again. I mean, remember, all this active aero stuff, that wasn't originally part of the plan. The active aero stuff came from running the sims and the drag of the Formula One car being so insane that they were never going to be able to regenerate enough power to head all the way down the straight without running out of it. So the things are going to evolve still.
Yeah.
But some of these technologies, as I said, just came around from the initial rule package and saying, well, it doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
So we need to do this and do that. Right.
Yeah. And I don't think I would, kick F1 or the FIA if they make small tweaks to either the technologies or the rule sets or anything like that going into this season. I don't think I would kick them in the shin if they had to make a change on starts or a change on deployment or where or how many deployment zones or, they're going to have to fine tune the tech to get it in balance with the racing. I agree with you. I think if you're casually watching Formula One, all the crazy stuff that's going on behind in each car, as long as it's delivering good racing, I don't know that your casual fan's going to care. Being an anorak and a lifelong F1 fan, I'm a bit of a nerd about it. So I would love to know who's using boost and where, and who's using boost to defend and not. I just think that would be really cool to know. I think the flashing lights on the back on, when you start depleting, the first one flash that Ant said starts using the energy, and then the multi-flash towards the end is your super clipping regenerating. I think that's helpful to know, when they're generating and stuff like that. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, you do need to know some of these things, because that is going to kind of play into, well, who's doing a good job, who's not doing a good job.
Right.
And who do we think is saving something that they could possibly make a move with? And that will be interesting, but it has to be in an easy format to visualize.
Exactly.
Else it's just going to be a massive distraction. You're not going to see a bunch of ones and zeros on the side and go, oh my goodness, It has to be, and that's difficult, but it can be done. I mean, remember that when they used the halo to show a lot of, to show, which they actually did a pretty good job with.
Yeah, they did.
And I agree. I think it was a really big ask to go 50-50 with the power. I don't even like the idea of it, really.
No,
I think it's too much. And it's becoming too much of a story. And so me personally, I would like them to backtrack a little bit on these percentages. I would rather the cars have maybe a little less in optimum horsepower, just so we can not make the story, the battery power depletion gone, and then someone just whizzes by somebody. I think they need to make the regen rate higher. If they can make it higher, make it higher. At least at the beginning, at least till everyone starts to understand it a bit better. Maybe, halfway through the season, make another change. As you said, just be brave enough to maybe make a change before we see a disaster.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we saw some of this stuff on the straightaways where someone had a run, the Cadillac had a run, and then all of a sudden the other car had a run, and it's like on the same straight. Massive differences on where the power out. We don't want to see that. We do not want to see that.
Yeah. And I hope it doesn't turn into a bit of a three-ring circus. And I think you got to give it a few races. Australia is a very unique track type. You'll have to give it a few races to see how that plays out. I, like you, I think it's too much. I thought, they're getting rid of the MGUH and the car should sound better and going to sustainable fuels and going to be more power. And then they said it was 50-50. And now all of a sudden it's almost like double down on hybrid. It's taken the 2014 hybrid to a new level. And as Max Verstappen said, if you want to see this, go watch Formula E, right?
Right. And who watches that?
Yeah, right. And I tend to agree with him. Who's, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm older, but, whose heart doesn't, stop when you hear one of those V10s, old videos of the V10 screaming down the front.
Right.
It's just so good. But anyway, let's talk about the second test. So that was out of Barcelona. I mentioned Williams didn't show up. They had some production delays. They were going to focus on Bahrain, which they did. Headed into Bahrain test 1. First official test in Bahrain, 11 teams showed up. The focus remained on reliability and setup work rather than initially chasing outright lap times. But I think you're right, Paul. This is where lap times start to matter more, and they start tracking that sector times versus others, sector time versus last year. Those kind of things are all at play here. They completed hundreds of laps here. And covered like 5,000 kilometers a day. The talking points again coming out of this session. Originally, Mercedes 422, Williams 422. So Williams, although they missed Barcelona, they doubled down in Bahrain and they threw out a lot of laps. Right? They had to. Ferrari 421 laps, Haas 390, Audi 354, Red Bull 343. Racing Bulls thereabout. Mercedes, markedly different. McLaren had 422. Mercedes, did I say Mercedes first? I meant McLaren 422.
Yeah.
Mercedes 282, markedly different. Had some issues in that first test. And then Aston Martin had some bigger issues, really. They had 206 laps, roughly. in reading F1.com, the Red Bull powertrains is the first Ford sort of branded engine. Really did impress. And what caught a lot of people's attention was their energy deployment and their straight line speed across the Red Bulls and the Racing Bulls. And there's a lot of people between the two of them, 670 laps. Paul, this is a nascent engine program. And, if you want to kick Christian Horner all you want, you may not like the guy, but that is his baby. I mean, he started that program. Some genius is working there, but he had to poach him, right? And
I guess they poached all the good guys from Honda.
Right. Because they had those Honda engineers that went over and worked for them, right? Because Honda was getting out, right? So that was good. Williams bouncing back, missed Barcelona, came in strong. James said lifted the mood of the team. Reliability was great. Caught up with their program. The recurring theme out of this test and the second Bahrain test is the car's a bit overweight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so they'll go through weight reduction, but I don't know that that's just simply saying, "Oh, hey, do we really need this?" It's kind of it's a bigger task, right?
Yeah. Hey, Fred, you left your spanner in the back.
Yeah, right. Hey,
like
Carlos,
goes to Monte Carlo reef thing.
Hey, Carlos, could you go on a diet and lose a stone?
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, that's tough. Mercedes. As I mentioned, struggling pace versus reliability. Pace looked good. Reliability had some issues there on the first 2 days. And Andrew Chauvelin said it really struggled just keeping it in the happy window. So the first chink in the armor for Mercedes, although most people after the second Bahrain test feel that Mercedes and George Russell look strong. Aston Martin, 206 laps, roughly half of Williams' total. The team admitted that it was on the back foot. Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll each clocked about 100 laps. Lance even claimed the car was 4.5 seconds off the pace, right? So not doing the team any favors.
No.
So that wasn't a great talking point to come out of that. Cadillac.
I think Fernando's thinking right now.
Retirement.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Honda again.
That was the whole infamous GP2 engine.
GP2 engine in the McLaren. Sent him to the back of the field, and he's like, and then he had that whole drama with the Honda driving because of what he said. Yeah. Having a Honda engine in an Indy car.
Right.
And he couldn't do that because, Honda didn't like him anymore. And then he finally gives it up expecting the miracles. And for them, it really seems like an engine issue than a everyone's like, the new Nui car. But I don't think it's even been able to get to actually utilize any of those standards because I think that there's a lot of bad mojo going on with that Honda engine. That's for sure.
Yeah. Think about that. Over at McLaren, Honda comes on board. New engine program. McLaren can't get it to work. Alonso's very upset. GP2 engine on the radio. Honda was mad. Then Honda leaves, goes to Red Bull, wins 4 championships. Right? And then Honda says, we're out. We're getting out. And there's like, okay, well, Audi and everybody else coming in. Well, okay. So maybe we'll make engines again for Formula One as a customer engine program. Yeah. Oh, okay. Meanwhile, all those engineers went to work for Christian Horner over at Red Bull. So the new Honda engineers are all new team in Japan building a new engine. And here's poor Alonso. This is the same stuff that happened to me when I was a McLaren, It's just a nightmare scenario for him, Paul.
It is. He's been biding his time, waiting for the newish chassis and waiting for everything to come good. And he's got to be very frustrated because none of the stuff coming out from that team, they're being very cagey as to what the real issue is, but it's pretty significant and easy to read it between the lines. It's an engine problem.
Yeah.
And if you can't fix the engine problem, you can't make any gains on the car. Yeah. So what do? They're behind in both fields.
Yeah. It's tough. I think I saw a blurb. I didn't vet it. It said that Nui said that the engine wasn't even regenerating 250 kilowatts, let alone the 350 they needed. So I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I read that. I don't know what the source was. I'm not saying that he didn't say it. I'm not slating the F1 source. I just didn't vet it. But
yeah, no, I did hear something about that because they were thinking about upping the regen rate, and they said everyone's fine with it except Honda may not even be able to get there. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, very difficult for Fernando at this point. I think they'd have been much better off, as it turns out, retaining that Mercedes customer engine.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Very difficult. Still encouraging for Cadillac. Haas and Ferrari, very quietly confident. Haas had 390 laps. Said they were on target. Ferrari 420. Said it was a successful test. A lot of people starting to look at Ferrari seriously out of that test. Again, that's probably boosted because Mercedes didn't quite have the test they would have wanted there on that first Bahrain test. Mm-hmm. So that leaves Ferrari pounding out a lot of laps and looking good, as well as McLaren. We got into the third test, Paul.
Yeah.
And this is where everything kind of you said. This is where system checks are done. Things are still working. Mapping out how we run these things. Mapping out race simulation runs. Qualifying test runs. You don't want to leave any energy in the battery at the end of a qualifying lap. Whereas during a race lap, you very much do. Right? So the idea on how you go qualifying and how you use the energy in qualifying is markedly different than how you would in a race, right?
Yeah, and that's going to be a big differentiator on the performance of the car. A car that can get on pole may not be able to be maybe last place by lap 10 because it can't.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's going to be quite a split, I think. It's not just going to be consistent. The front runners will be there at the end. It's
right.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of talk came out of this test in particular. I think it may have began in the first test there, around the innovation, not only Ferrari's rotating wing or Audi's radical side pod sort of thing, but there was certainly some talk, Paul, that Ferrari had a smaller turbo, which allowed it to spool up much quicker. Than the other teams. And they thought that's what may really help them, on throttle, coming out in normal, combustion mode on throttle, that it spools up much quicker. And certainly a lot of people thinking that may have a lot to do with their starts.
Yeah, and that helps you get off the corner too, right? I mean,
yeah.
I know we talked about lag, and it's like, well, it's not like 1979,
right?
The lag, but any lag at all is a performance loss, and any performance loss in Formula One is massive, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Ferraris definitely seem to have covered a lot of ground from nose to tail on the car, and using innovation, clever thoughts, and just good engineering, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, the old days, that turbo spool up lag, you could count that in seconds, right? It's like 3, 4, and now it's measured in probably tenths, right? Something much better, turbo technology obviously has come a long ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's some intriguing elements around that. Certainly, the amount of mileage, yet again, Mercedes 432 bounced back, put in a lot of mileage, had some really good laps. Racing Bulls right up there, 407. Haas 404. McLaren 395. Williams again another 368. Alpine 359. Pierre Gasly doing a lot of work over at Alpine. Audi 357. Red Bull 329. Aston Martin 128 in that second test, and they ended up halting it, and they only ran a couple laps, a couple runs on the last day.
They ran out of parts, supposedly.
Yeah. So the talking points coming out of that Mercedes, a lot of people felt, hey, Mercedes back on top, pounding out, tons of laps, strong long run pace, top mileage. They thought that W17 may have pace in hand. And certainly a lot of discussion around compression ratios, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And with the FIA coming out and saying, well, we're going to come up with a test. And, if there's any argy-bargy, they have until August, Nobody, knowing all the teams that Mercedes is supplying, nobody at the FIA was going to go do a test now and deem all of those engines illegal.
Right.
for the first race of the season was never going to happen.
And they shouldn't. It wasn't it wasn't illegal. It was a very clever move.
Yeah.
And they you read the rules. Where is the test? It's a static, basically just a static test.
Right.
Going to be measured out on the track. So that's the rules you live by. And I think it's okay to do what they're doing, where they're giving the other teams either enough time to innovate in the same manner. I would rather see that, honestly, than retracting all the work they put into the engine to match the people that weren't clever enough to think of it.
Right. Well, it's like the double diffuser, right? Yeah. Only 2 teams started the season with it. By the end of the season, all the teams had it, right?
Exactly.
And the F duct, same thing. We'll see what happens with that. Ferrari rotating rear wing, like I said, that was kind of novel and got a lot of memes.
It's pretty cool.
But it was pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of memes.
Yeah, a lot of. I like the one with the rotisserie with the train.
That.
Pork on it. It's like, nice. Aston Martin nightmare. Honda battery issue restricted them to 128 laps. Only 6 untimed laps on the final day.
I think the only thing, going back to Aston Martin again, the only thing that can come out of their positive is that it's an engine issue. Yeah, and the engine, they can go back to the engine room and start working on that stuff. Yeah. If it was a chassis, something problem, then the only way to fix that is to more testing on track, which they can't do. So we know they're pulling 24-hour shifts at the Honda factory for sure, and hopefully someone has an option.
Yeah, no doubt.
To solve it, but they have a chance to do it, but it's not gonna be easy.
Yeah, it's just like.
What does it all mean, Vandal?
I don't know what they got going on. At this point, maybe they take over the Williams soundbite. They've got a lot of major issues to address. They just do, and like you said, it's engine related, so it isn't necessarily Adrian's aero, that they're struggling with. It's the engine. So, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Also, still continued discussion about Williams being overweight. The mileage is really good. So that was good. Apologies. I have 3 crazy Australian shepherds barking in the back, so apologies.
That mailman is scared out of his mind.
Must be delivery, There's a doormat for Australian shepherds. You can say, "Don't bother knocking. We know you're here." It's so true. It's so true. Let's see. Cadillac again, 10th in mileage. Very impressed with their program. Happy for the program. Do I think they're going to be leading the midfield? No, but I think that's a very positive move because I wasn't expecting that. And it's great to see. So kudos to the whole Cadillac team and Graham Loudon.
Definitely for that. I think, but the lap time, as I said, we're not reading everything from the lap time, but the lap time kind of shows they are a bit behind. But just imagine, probably the hardest thing in racing to do is to start a Formula One team from scratch and put it on the track, and now do the same thing and add the most complicated rule set ever invented. I think they're doing a great job, but it's not going to be miraculous. It's not going to be. They're not going to be fighting out for points at the moment. But definitely a very, very good job on putting the team together and putting the car on track that's got reliability, and that's what they need to do. And I'm sure their expectations aren't they're going to be hunting for points. They're just the new kid on the block at a block that they haven't let new kids in very often.
Right.
They don't make it easy. So, so good job for them, but don't have massive expectations either.
Yeah, I don't. I don't for Audi either, but, it's a brand new engine. But I got to be honest with you, this isn't a team who this team's already been in F1. New engine. As long as the engine's delivering the performance that it needs, the energy harvesting, energy deployment, everything's working there. As long as that's happening, I think they could be thereabouts in the midfield. They could add some spice in that midfield, given what's going on. I got to tell you, though, honestly, coming out of the testing, I agree with the pundits. I thought the 2 teams that look like And I'm super happy to tell you that I thought Alpine was looking really well with that Mercedes engine. Pierre was throwing down some great laps, great number of laps. Total mileage was great. Pace was good. I kind of feel like the pundits could be onto something, that Alpine and Haas could be, and Racing Bulls certainly could be that front runner midfield battle, you know?
Yeah. But let's go back to Audi.
Yes.
Because I am very impressed by Audi. And, I've been impressed by Audi many times over the decades.
Over the years, yes.
Right? But, you're dealing with a solid team that have a lot of experience, and you're dealing with Audi, who have a lot of experience on all kinds of different engine concepts.
They know how to make an engine.
They know how to make an engine. They know how to how to use technology at its utmost and be game-changing.
Yes.
And so I think, but they're a new kid on the block. It's not like most of these other manufacturers. They've built Formula One engines for a while, and it's, this is the next thing we're going to build. This is literally a whole engine program starting from scratch, and we're going to build a Formula One car, an engine package. And so for me, the Audi team is the most impressive team on the ground right now, just for what they've had to deal with, where they've come from, and what they've put out on the track. So
I couldn't agree more. I mean, they bought a working team, and they bought it, methodically showed up, put the right people in place, develop an engine. They've won Le Mans numerous times, even with a diesel. They know how to make an engine. They know how to do hybrids. They know how to manage what their e-tron and their electrics, and they know what they're doing. I mean, they're very, very smart people over there. And to put together a chassis that the aero, is innovative. I couldn't agree more. So far, I'm most impressed with Audi being able to deliver that. You think, well, okay, but there's Cadillac, but Cadillac's using Ferrari's, drivetrain and power. So there's that. Alpine's using a Mercedes, right? Audi had a lot of heavy lifting, and I also kind of lump Red Bull in that because that's a brand new engine. They've never made an engine before, ever. Yeah. Audi's made thousands and thousands of engines.
They've just made drinks. Yes.
Yeah, they just make drinks, right? And out of nowhere, they made an engine that's on song there. Yeah. And it's impressive. Very impressive.
It is.
Yep.
It is very impressive.
Also, let's see. Innovation, that's strong. Energy management really started becoming the main talking point coming out of that second test. It was all about how are they going to manage the energy? How are they going to deploy it? What are the starts going to look like? A lot of hand-wringing out of the energy management came out of that.
Yeah, I mean, remember we were talking about the race starts, and I said the people were running around, the sky is falling, and I sent a message to you and Grace. I said, well, if they're so worried, tell them to go do some practice starts, see what the hell happens, rather than... And then, lo and behold, that afternoon, they started doing practice starts. Like, well, they listened to me finally.
They listened.
It's like, everyone pontificating, well, this is going to do this is going to happen. In the end, everyone moved off the grid and everyone got down to turn one, and it wasn't so crazy as people thought. And they kept doing it, which is great. And that's kind of what I've liked about how the FIA have been running this whole thing, is they've been willing to change a little bit, not stick their feet in the ground. Well, we gave you the rules and you figure it out. They're actually working together with the teams, which doesn't always happen. And I don't know if it's because they've thought, oh my God, we came out with a set of rules that are pretty crazy, and we kind of put these teams in it, but it's definitely the working between the sanctioning body and the teams is probably better than I've seen it for a very long time. And the ability to change. I mean, I dealt with FIA and all those, and sometimes it's really hard for them to not look at the paper and put it in your face and say, well, this is the rule, you stick to this, right? Yeah, but that rule really isn't really working right now. Can't you see everything happening behind us? And so we'll see. I think there's definitely going to be some. So with that conversation, with that back and forth between them, I think we will see a few more changes before we get to Australia. to maybe fine tune this stuff and make it not as radical looking as a lot of people were anticipating.
Yeah, I agree. And fair enough. A lot of the F1 pundits just running out permutations of what they've seen and what they think could possibly happen, and it makes for great headlines. It's like, oh my gosh, F1 trains running off the rails. And we'll see. Who knows? So yeah, I think there's that. Ultimately, let me give you the combined, because that to me kind of speaks volumes. This is the combined, and when I think about overall combined mileage is the critical part, not only for reliability on brand new engines, chassis, et cetera, but also having enough laps to give you enough time to work out your system and to learn the energy deployment, energy harvest, and all that stuff. Run simulations. The more laps you do, the more data you get, and that makes you better prepared. So it isn't just a reliability thing.
Yeah,
it's time on track, right?
Yep.
So total at the very top. This is why a lot of people, Paul, came out of this thinking that Mercedes looks to be in the catbird seat. They had 1,214 laps that they ran in total across 3 tests. Haas next, 1180. Wow. Well, they're not next in ranking, but 1180. But I think they're up there, right? 1180. You had Ferrari, 1,186. That's a lot of mileage. McLaren, 1,104, 1,104. Racing Bulls, more than Red Bull, 1,052. Red Bull, 975. Right behind Red Bull, Paul, Audi, 950. You had Alpine with over 1,026 laps. Williams, 790. Cadillac 750, Aston Martin 399, and that just is not enough laps. No, it's just not enough.
As you say, the laps. It's not just about reliability; it's about learning systems and data. They're all new cars. The more data you can get, every lap is crucial. They're learning, they're adjusting. You change one thing to learn something. Then the next lap, you'll change something else to learn something more, and it's never going to stop. It just never stops. And so the laps may seem like they're just pounding around, but everything is done with a purpose.
Yeah, agreed. You would expect that kind of lap count from the top teams, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull. You kind of expect that. I actually expected a little bit more out of Red Bull, but Racing Bull's delivered. So you would expect that, and they have 2 teams, so it's really an aggregate, right?
Yeah.
As far as engine performance.
Which going back to, that is an important part, that they've got will have 4 cars or 2 cars in the test, putting mileage on that new engine, whereas Audi only had one, and obviously Aston Martin only had one with the Honda. So
yeah, exactly. So those are the same engines, right? So I think you would expect that from Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull empire. The notables to me, Haas. That's a lot of laps for Haas.
Yeah.
The other notable, Audi. Great mileage for Audi on a brand new engine, brand new program. I think the other one is Alpine. They had more than Audi. They had over 1,000 laps on that Alpine with that Mercedes. That bodes well. I'm hoping that Alpine can punch right back this year and move up. I think Pierre deserves it, if I'm honest. So we'll see. So those are the total lap counts. And really it came down to the front runner. I think the press basically, Paul, they would tell you that it suggests that Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull are closely matched. The Ferrari looked very promising. Mercedes' long run pace hints that they may still be the benchmark. I think the press thinks we're going to expect a very tight battle between the top 4 there. The midfield, the press came out of the final test saying that, yes, there's a gap between them and the big 4, but Haas, Alpine, and Racing Bulls clearly look like they could be leading that midfield contenders with a lot of solid mileage between them. And even Cadillac and still heavy Williams look like they're going to start maybe behind them. And that would be a step backwards, I think, for Williams, Paul.
Yeah, it's difficult because remember when Val's first jumped into the job, and then they ran out of parts or chassis, and he was like, "Yeah, you're learning some lessons here." He's learned another lesson also, and from the feedback I get, it's like he pushes everyone hard, and I think he's a guy that inspires people to work super hard as well. He'll get down there and start scrubbing the floors if he needs to get things done, but he maybe became a bit more overambitious of what he was trying to achieve. That's kind of how it sounds when they didn't have enough parts, that the timelines didn't quite match up, and another lesson learned. Really hard to make a car lighter, honestly.
It is.
It's not like they're just sitting there leaving some screws in. I'm not sure how much heavier it is and what the solution is, but that's really tough once you've completed that car.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be tough to fix. That's not an overnight fix.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they can get a lot of weight out of that before Australia. I think that would be a tough call.
Yeah.
Aston Martin clearly scrambling for solutions at this point, coming out of that testing. Some very clever solutions came out of testing. As I mentioned, the rotating rear wing, their flow turning devices. Mercedes and Audi had sort of novel aero packages they were developing. Very narrow waist on those cars. Energy recovery strategies like the Plan B engine modes. Shows that the new rules still reward ingenuity, but it'll be interesting to see how they do that. And then really the brewing and ongoing discussion around compression ratios with Mercedes, some hints that Red Bull could be sandbagging, while the start procedure, who's really got it well and who doesn't, the turbo spool ups, are we talking in tenths or are we talking in seconds, right? What are we talking about here as far as spool up really in anger, right?
Yeah. And so we've seen all this innovation and everyone's going to be like, oh my God, it's a disaster. What's a disaster? One team dominating? I'm sorry, but you and I have been watching F1 for decades. This has happened many times.
Many times.
Be it the Lotus with its ground effect, be it the McLaren with its 4 brake pedals.
Car behind me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it happens. A team gets it way more right than others, but then the fun is seeing everyone catch it back up. So no matter what happens in Australia, I'm looking forward to seeing it, but if one team dominates or one engine manufacturer dominates and figures it out, it's not a disaster. It's just day one, Yeah,
you could just go back to 2014. I mean, Mercedes came out and just beat the stuffing for 2 or 3 years. Right. They were so far ahead of everyone else.
Right. Could nearly lap the whole field, right?
Yeah. They just pummeled the field back then. I mean, it's frustrating when you're not a Mercedes fan, when you're a fan of another team, but they got it right. They nailed it. And Red Bull had 4 years on the trot. They nailed it when Mercedes didn't. Those evolutions happen. Could we see McLaren be off the pace where they've been, the Constructors' Championship 2 years on the trot? Maybe. It's hard to say. So, I don't think it's a disaster. I think it's, but I don't think it's complete. I wouldn't write all of these regulations and sporting regulations and rules. I wouldn't write that on a rock just yet.
Right.
I think, to your point, Paul, you're going to see the F1 and the FIA lobbying each other and teams lobbying both to make some tweaks and changes that could be agreed on by all teams. Now, that in itself is a very difficult thing to do, but nobody wants to give up any advantage, perceived or otherwise, right?
Right.
So it'll be tough.
Yeah. And one thing that makes me angry, there's many things that make me angry, especially if going out to dinner with me. You'll find that out. It's notorious. But is all these comparisons on lap time between the old cars and the new cars. I mean, you see these overlays, and everyone's, oh my God, it's terrible. Look, it's so much. It's got less downforce, dude. It's going to happen. You know, are you going to see a 2-second difference in a Formula One car going around? No, you're not going to see it. Could it make racing better? Yeah, it could. That's all you're going to really care about. If it's 2 seconds, what makes different? And then when you look at the times that they put out at the last, you know, when they were starting to do glory laps at the end in Bahrain, the times were comparable with when they first came out with the ground effect car just 3 years ago.
Yeah.
The cars are on pace with the ground effects cars that came out 3 years ago that didn't have a big engine change or anything like that. I think everything's fine as far as performance on track. And going with lower downforce, more power, that's all you can ask for. Remember when I interviewed Kimi Räikkönen? You know, we had a discussion about that. What do you want? You know, less grip, more power. That's what we all want to see. And now these cars are kind of getting there. So maybe the number on the screen may be a little different, and it's not a lot different. And they'll get there anyway, because you know Formula One always does. You know, don't get wrapped up in these overlays. It's not a disaster. These cars aren't turds in the straight line. They're still the fastest race cars in the world. Yeah, and driven by
and the most efficient.
Yeah, for sure, right?
By a country mile,
by a country mile, and driven by mostly the best drivers in the world. So. I think it's all good. I really do.
Yeah, it's okay to be excited about this season. I don't think. Yeah. Look, if you're newer to Formula One, you know, I would just tell you, don't get wrapped up in the sky is falling nonsense. It's, you know, Formula One will make whatever tweaks it needs to make. They'll do whatever they need to do regulation-wise or rule set-wise. If they need to make a tweak to the boost deployment, they need to make a tweak to the way it regens, how much it regens, those kind of things. That'll be figured out if there needs to be that. And to your point, Paul, at the end of the day, every fan survey says they want more exciting racing, more passing, blah, 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 blah. I don't know that any of those surveys were overwhelming response was, I want cars to be breaking lap times every single year. Faster and faster and faster and faster. That isn't, you know, there's kind of terminal velocity on these tracks, right? And these cars, these cars are still going 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're
more agile. They're lighter and they're skinnier. They're actually
skinnier. Yeah,
more like a race car. Yeah,
and less tire. Right, the tires are narrower, less grip, less contact patch. Right, so it's a little more difficult. And if you're not a professional driver, you go get in a car and go 200 miles an hour and tell me what it feels like. I've been with Sebastian Vettel at 185, and it scared the hell out of you. So I'm just telling you,
that's
these
in a street
cars
car.
Are fast, and that was in a 488 Pista, right? Yeah. So, so don't buy in, like Paul said, don't buy into it yet. The sky's not falling. Things are going to be different for sure, but we can get into the preview. But I think the testing overall, before we close out, Paul, I think the testing showed us a lot of things. And I gotta say, on balance, while everybody is panicking and, like you said, doing overlays and, you know, ripping rubs, gnashing teeth, wringing hands over this thing, I kind of take out of testing that it's new innovative technology. I'm not crazy with the 50-50 split, but it is what it is. Right. I do think that testing showed us a lot of people did their homework. A lot of those new engines ran really well and pounded out lots of laps, right? I think the battery technology in aggregate was good because, you know, you're draining and regenning and draining so fast in every single corner, every single lap, and that's pummeling that battery. And so that's good. I think the sustainable fuels seem to be okay. They didn't seem to have many issues with that. There was some leverage, you know, people suggesting that Mercedes and Petronas had a special fuel that was out of regulation, but who knows? That's all speculation. I think I think this testing was positive and kind of set the table, I think, for an interesting season. It could be very interesting.
Yeah. You know, I go back to when I was a kid and fell in love with Formula One, and the innovation was a big part. I mean, I know we've got Drive to Survive with the drama and the battles or fake battles between one personality and another, but this technology has always been a massive part of Formula One. You know, when I saw the 6-wheel Tyrrell, when I found out what ground effects does for me, I'm like, holy cow, this is amazing. These guys are geniuses. This is so cool. And the cars hadn't even turned a wheel around the track, but you know, giddy as a schoolgirl, right?
You remember Williams' water-cooled brakes.
Yeah, right. We think Formula One's been put in this little tiny box, but they kind of blew it all apart, and the teams are just showing what they're made of. And this is a big part of why a lot of us fell in love with Formula One. It may be a little different to some people that just kind of climbed on board recently with, all the other side of the sport, which is also fun. Right? It's people against people and personalities against personalities. Yeah. But the innovation and technology is also a massive part of what differentiates Formula One from other sports, even other motorsports. I mean, IndyCar have been running the same chassis for 25 years now, right? Yeah. They're not innovating anything, right? But Formula One has to do it every single season. Even us with the LMP cars, they have 5-year longevity. Formula One, every year. Everything's new. It's just, mind-boggling.
It's amazing. It is. It is. So, So anyway, that's what we think of testing. Let us know what you think, what you saw come out of testing. If you saw some innovative pieces, parts, or some challenges you think that could be a real bugbear for Formula One or the FIA to address, some of the starts and stops. Right now, the biggest complaints I've had so far is, what the heck is Apple TV doing and how do I watch it? I mean, it's crazy. So, I don't know.
I haven't found anything on Apple TV yet. I've only been able to watch the F1 TV app. That's all I know. But,
yeah, right. That's what I was watching it on. But anyway.
It's a secret.
It is. It's like, oh my gosh. So anyway, and we got Drive to Survive coming up in what is it? 4 days or so? We got Drive to Survive.
I can finally find out what happened last season.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll figure out what happened. Yeah. So anyway, well, we'll come back next week. Paul will do a little season preview, kind of run through the teams, talk about the drivers, do a little preview. We'll grab Grace, get her unique spin on the season that's coming up. I'm sure it'll be all papaya for her, which is great. And until that time, when we come back again next week, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. It's not what I feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out what